So in a nutshell, hypnosis, NLP, it can absolutely help you. In my opinion, 100% get onto it, because you can wash that part of your life. In fact, I was going to say you can wash it away, and don't do that. Don't wash it away at all. Just, you know what, learn from it, move on forward.
I reckon washing it away, drink more alcohol,
Yep.
or they will work more, or they will, deliberately, subconsciously sabotage themselves by doing something almost against themselves. But it's very well documented that when we are stressed, we're in a fight flight kind of natural, autopilot zone.
Okay.
So not only do we move into fight flight, but what that also means is that problems never happen single-handedly. So it's almost like, you're on a roll, but you're on a roll in the worst way possible.
Yeah, we don't want that kind of roll.
No, you don't. But if you flip it, this is where you can really tell that it's an energetic shift, is because if you can shift it from your body, and I think we've got a few questions here and one that'll kind of open this up.
Okay, yep.
It's not about forgetting some really big crisis or trauma that you've had in your life, or how much you hate something or someone or an event.
Sure.
It's not about forgetting that, because, we're not wired to forget these kinds of things. My name is Terry Messenger, and I am Hey, and welcome to Terry Messenger's Genius Zone. And, this is the place and the space where you are going to get your own free masterclass, absolutely free.
It is Edge Radio Australia. We are in the mood for quite a show, let me tell you. You don't know this because, of course, you haven't been watching, but we have been pumping here in the studio before we went live to air. So we are really looking forward to a great show. What kind of show are we looking forward to?
We are looking forward to quantum jumping in time.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. All right.
Quantum jumping,
I'm not
Aaron.
even ready for that. Okay. I was going to say
we need a rocket.
I was going to say we're ready for the Genius Zone, but you've taken another step. You've just kept going on that one. So no, that's fantastic. Quantum. Okay. I know I've heard about quantum computers. Quantum, what are we quantum solacing? What are we doing?
We're quantum leaping.
Leaping. All right.
On the Genius Zone.
Right.
So that we can go anywhere we want in the future or the past. We can go forward. We can jump back in time.
How handy
like
would this
Kylie
be?
Minogue says. And we can do anything, and we can create anything. I am exaggerating a little
Just
bit.
a little bit.
We've got to make the show a little bit exciting,
Yeah. Go talk it up a little bit, right? Okay. And also with life, let's face it, why live life? I don't know, just why have vanilla? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I want the cream and I want the cherry and the top. I want sprinkles. Goddamn
exactly,
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I want it all.
It's all about energy, and it's all about, being your greatest self.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also about the fact that if we are having, I'm sure you are an expert on this, Aaron, but if we're going through a really tough time in our lives,
yep.
And I think we can all relate to that.
Of course we can. No doubt about
because it's an inevitable thing. As long as we're human, as long as there's a nose on our face. So wouldn't it be good to be able to shift that stuff that really clogs up our whole nervous system?
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is it doesn't just impact us, emotionally. It also impacts us physically.
Great point. Great point. Talking to someone earlier today, and they were saying about the fact that they've been under immense amounts of stress lately, and it's made them put on weight. Now, so many people say, stress is, they lose weight because of stress.
Yep.
You know what? Absolute rubbish, because I would weigh 50 kilos based on how I run my life.
Is that right?
So, you know, I run on stress.
Yes.
That and coffee products, right?
Yep.
So for me, you know, stress puts on weight, and that's not an excuse. I mean, it's part of the
but
reason.
it does can flip either way.
It can. And different metabolism.
Yeah, but you know, some people, they will overeat when they're stressed.
Too true.
Or they'll drink more alcohol.
Yep.
Or they will work more. Or they will, you know, deliberately, subconsciously sabotage themselves by doing something almost against themselves. But it's very well documented that when we are stressed, we're in a fight flight kind of natural, you know, autopilot zone.
Okay.
So not only do we move into fight flight, but what that also means is that problems never happen single-handedly. So it's almost like, you know, you're on a roll, but you're on a roll in the worst way possible.
Yeah, we don't want that kind of roll.
No, you don't. But if you flip it, this is where you can really tell that it's an energetic shift, is because if you can shift it from your body, and I think we've got a few questions here and one that'll kind of open this up.
Okay, yep.
You know, it's not about forgetting some really big crisis or trauma that you've had in your life, or how much you hate something or someone or an event.
Sure.
It's not about forgetting that, because, you know, we're not wired to forget these kinds of things.
No, we're not.
In fact, human beings are really good at focusing on it.
Yeah, and why do we do that? Why do we focus on the negative when, you know,
Drama?
Yeah, we like the drama. Is it maybe we like to live our lives a little bit like maths, right? Married at first sight.
Oh, yeah.
You know, sure, we could focus on something a little bit more positive. We could be laying down on the beach in the Caribbean, but no, we decide to go for the drama and remember the drama, right?
Yeah, it's just the way we are. We will, you know, if we have 10 things happen to us that are specifically really, really good.
Yep.
And specifically really, really bad, we will be more likely to remember the bad and focus on the bad.
All right. Well, you are the master at the old NLP, right? So you need to start teaching me, well, I say start, you've been teaching me for a while, about unplugging that little channel and plugging another one in, because this is, you know, there are so many great techniques here that can stop you from doing so many of these things, which are quite frankly, like they're just toxic to your lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? We get one run at this, maybe we don't, maybe we get many. I don't know. Okay, this is the only one I'm aware of at the moment. But what I'm getting at is, you know, your life is precious, okay? And how often do we waste so much of it on negativity, on things that brought us down? Look, they're going to happen, okay? Life, you know, it's like riding a wave. If you, you know, sometimes you're very good at surfing. You know, other times, well, you know, you head first into the sand, right?
Well, this is true, but you will be better at learning something, or especially if you're good at surfing and if you know a surfer, that's a really good analogy, because I can remember having this complete breakdown when I was 27.
Yep.
And what had happened was, it was an accumulation of life. And like I say, in my niche, you know, a lot of people, I find life kind of catches up with them between the ages of 28 and 38.
Okay.
And that's a predominantly, it's almost like, you know, you sort of settle down, something happens where you begin processing life, you begin thinking things through a little bit more seriously than when you're young and you're just wanting to have fun, right? Yep. So the rubber hits the road. But when I had this breakdown, I thought I was just having a, you know, like a breakdown because I was working too hard. I had a small child at the time, and I just didn't stop. I was just going. And I was in real estate and I just couldn't stop. Like if I was, you know, if I had a offer to sign up, I'd be out negotiating at 10 o'clock at night.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So it wouldn't matter. I was crazy. And then one day it's almost like the universe says, sit down and shut up. And the only way that could happen, it's like my body, my internal thermometer has this amazing way of saying, well, if you're not going to listen, we're going to make you listen.
We've got no choice, right? Okay, you've been summoned. I'm going to interrupt you for a moment. Fantastic to see some lovely comments coming in there. Want to just acknowledge people. Lovely to see you, Melissa. Always a pleasure, and love to have your opinions. Love having opinions of everybody through the show. This is the great thing about being interactive. We want to have a conversation, right? So you could be all the way in, just for argument's sake, say like Darren here. Now Darren is in Las Vegas. Lucky you, mate. There we go.
Oh, I thought you'd be asleep.
Well, you might be a night owl, but great to be all the way on the other side of the world there and able to contribute to the conversation. As I say, fantastic stuff from Melissa as well. So keep the questions and the comments coming in, and away we go.
Yeah, and I believe Melissa might come in on the show one time,
We've been talking
down the
about
track.
this.
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely. So
Look forward to
Melissa,
that.
yeah, so, I was kind of forced into this position. But one of the things I'll do, go and work out, go to the gym, go and do a yoga class,
Right.
go and do a Pilates, whatever it is. And I can't remember what it was, whether it was a yoga place. It was a bit more upbeat.
Mhm.
But my head was so pickled that I couldn't follow any instructions.
Okay.
I
Yep.
simply could not, and I'm pretty good at getting into the groove. And, when it comes to moving body, and moving body, by the way, is amazing thing to do, even if you can't dance, because what you're doing is by you're shifting the energy.
Okay.
So it's, if you're having playful kind of NLP, for
Mhm.
example, and someone's in a really bad mood,
Yep.
usually what happens is they get locked into this physical posture.
Sure.
So the best thing to do is to unlock them. And if you've got a relationship with them that's close enough and you're not sort of treading over too many boundaries,
Yep.
you can just grab them and,
Twist them around.
start
yeah, why not?
dancing with them, or just shift them. Even when I first started doing NLP, I must admit, because it's the practical first initial parts of NLP is really playful.
Okay.
And I believe it's really set up even for kids at school.
Oh,
And,
okay.
so
Get them early.
yeah, but just to stay on track, I couldn't follow through with the routine.
Right.
My brain was not in the space.
Was it because you used to dance like Elaine from Seinfeld?
I wish. I really feel like I could dance and I didn't have too many issues normally.
Okay.
But on this occasion, even the teacher said to me, she didn't know my name or anything, but she said, "Are you okay?" Because I was really upsetting the
Well,
whole
if you can see it, like,
whole
if you can
thing.
sense it in someone.
I just couldn't get. I just couldn't remember anything. Couldn't follow. Getting back to the surfer person, those guys, they need to be out on their boards. They need to be in the moment. They need to be feeling the
And they are living the
cold water.
moment. Look
They
at that.
are.
Yeah.
They are. And balance,
Mhm.
you'll find that you'll be able to tell how stressed you are. Like some people, they don't have great balance anyways,
Sure.
but there are a few little basic balancing tricks you can do, and it'll show you where you are in your head.
Right.
So the more able, it's not about being fancy or anything and like lifting your leg right up on the other leg and holding a pose. You can simply just put one ankle on top of the other
Right.
and gaze at a spot
Yep.
and see how your body goes.
Okay.
Now, the more wobbly, you might be sort of messing around at first, but the more of the wobble, that will show you where you're at in your brain. So
That's really interesting.
yeah. It's hard to balance because you need to be like Michael Jackson ever said. I think I said this once before. Someone said, "What is your secret?"
Mm,
He said,
the way
"I
he dances.
think of nothing."
That's amazing. Yeah.
You've got to literally be thinking of nothing. And when you can get your client into that state
Sure.
where they are from, completely consumed, for example, with stress,
Yep.
trauma, any kind of a situation. And God only knows, I wished I knew this stuff when I was, when I was that age, when I was younger.
Hindsight, hey?
And you can move them and shift them so they're fully into their body and they're no longer running this kind of whole movie in their brain anymore. So they're letting go of it.
Yeah, it's a level of focus. And I know, as we all know, I can turn anything into a motor racing story, or car story. But I really mean this. Okay, like the times where I had absolutely genuine speed, where everything was special, right, was a moment of unbelievable clarity when everything becomes almost like you can literally hear classical music in your head and you flow and everything's happening very slowly in that. It's just this, the moment
Yeah.
of the whole rest of the world just melts away, and your entire world becomes what you can see out of the windscreen.
You buy time, don't you?
You do buy time.
You buy
You do.
time.
You have so much. And when you think, if you're outside the car, or if you're living a different sort of level of consciousness, I guess, than being in the zone, right? Like you are unbelievably close to things. You're traveling unbelievably fast, but in your mind it's waiting, boom, boom, boom. It's just taking yourself to, it's just a greater clarity of taking away all the noise and replacing it with focus.
Yeah, that's actually, they teach that actually in one of the modalities, where you can channel your zone of genius, like that superpower of what it feels like when you are in that zen, and when you're in that car, and when you're experiencing the engine, when, you know, your feet are on the pedals, when your hands are on the wheel, you know, the feelings, the vibration, the sort of the way your body is,
it becomes an extension of your body.
Yeah. And that zen, and you'll find that time changes. So it is very, very different than a person who is totally stressed out, you know, and you've got to be somewhere, you're in a mad rush, and you're nervous about what you're doing and getting there, and time shrinks. You know, and that's
true. It's true.
This is what happens. But this is where I'm very good at jumping into people's worlds, okay? And that's, they do teach it to you as a part of rapporting with people, but I believe that I learned it as a stress and a kind of almost a trauma kind of mechanism, if you will, where I learnt how to jump into other people's worlds. And so, but it happens for the greater good as well, as, you know, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a not so good thing. But so when I walk in here, just to say backstage what happens around here, I jump into your world. So when I jump into your world.
I did not know that.
Now, but I don't deliberately do it. It's not like I'm going, right, I am walking in and I am going to jump into Aaron's world. It just happens. I jump in, I guess I walk into Edge Radio. So as I'm walking in, what happens is then all of the things become contagious. So, for example, not necessarily to anyone and everyone, but for me, so for example, would anybody say if you had to go live or you had to show up somewhere and perform, would you say that 13 seconds is a long time to be able to do that? Well, guess what? Here in Edge Radio, 13 seconds is a lifetime.
You can get a lot done in 13 seconds. Yep, you really can.
13 seconds. Aaron told me we had a minute and 13 seconds, and there was nothing set up. The lights were not on. There was nothing happening.
That's right.
But because you know what you're doing, you're in your vortex. So the vortex that you're in, you are able to do things much better than someone that's learning or someone that needs to do it.
You fall into autopilot, quite frankly. It's very comfortable and very easy.
So time changes in time. So whether you are a person, if you happen to be going through a lot of stress, what you're going to find is that unless you internally shift that, even if it means just shifting it from your physical state, so that you may not heal it, you may not, deal with it completely. However, you've got to, and I think this is what I've been able to do actually in my situation. I've been able to deal with it so that I'm not constantly allowing my body to be in that hugely stressful zone 24/7. Because it's not good for you.
No way. It's terrible.
It causes disease.
It does.
It causes problems.
Well, did you bring that to me, the whole disease being dis-ease?
I know that that's true.
Yeah. Well, I'd never heard that term before, until we chatted about it once. And it's true, right? The body is not at ease, right?
Yeah. It's a dis-ease of the mind, and everything affects our nervous system. Our nervous system is the first thing that was laid down at birth. It is the miracle of everything. And if
Yep.
our nervous system can create this incredible way to simply send blood flowing automatically, our heart beating automatically, our breath going automatically, right? That's a miracle.
Doing a pretty good job.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's our internal nervous system. That's our whole body. So how easy can it be to eliminate so many evil forces? Let's exaggerate here a bit,
Well,
but
no,
the
no, they're
evil
not
forces,
Evil.
evil
Evil.
forces from our life.
Oh, wouldn't that be good though, right? Honestly,
Wouldn't it?
yeah, wouldn't it be great? Hey, I reckon we should jump into some questions.
I
because we
reckon.
have a big
Let's
bunch
do
of questions there. Let's have
And it will
sweet-
keep
oopsie
us
days.
on
I'm
track.
pressing the wrong buttons here. There's all these cool stuff coming
So
in.
I like to
There
talk
we
to
go.
people in my community and around the traps,
Yep.
and people that are looking at working with me for the first time. And, you know, that's where we get some of these questions from.
Hey, all the way from Canada with this one. Thank you, Simon. Really appreciate the question. Why do you think timeline therapy works so rapidly? Is there a science or proven reason behind its claims?
Well, neuroscience, if you look up Joe Dispenza, you will find out about neuroscience, Simon. And why does timeline work so rapidly? Well, you know, I'm not a scientist, and I didn't study the brain the way Professor Grinder and, you know, Richard Bandler did, and they are
Okay.
the founders of neuro-linguistic programming. But what they did, and I think you've heard the foundational story before,
I have, yep.
is that they got together, they partnered, but they realized that, you know, neuro-linguistic programming is really the modeling of excellence.
I like
Yeah,
that.
it
I
is
like
the
that.
modeling of excellence, and the ability to be able to watch a person and see what they're doing. Now, sometimes they don't have to be, you know, Dr. Daniel Amen, you know, one of the greatest doctors that scans brains of the famous and
Okay.
can see what's going on internally in the brain.
I tell you right now, if you scan some of the brains of the famous, you could read through it. You know, let's face it, fame doesn't always mean they're terribly bright.
No, it does not.
Far from it.
It does not at all, not even one bit. In fact, some of them, you know, you'd be surprised just how, you know, socially inept they are
Yeah,
when
so
it comes to, you know, and doing interviews. They're shocking because they don't have a script. But I mean, that's got nothing to do with brains. That can be, but none of us are perfect. But,
No,
you know,
I'm just teasing.
exactly.
I mean, you know, to me, this is interesting because okay, if you're a layman walking in, you know nothing about NLP, the whole term timeline therapy, okay, I mean, that just kind of lights up your mind a little bit and you think, okay, well, what is it, right? Like,
Timeline therapy. Okay, would you like me to go a bit deeper there?
I think so.
Okay,
That's
so
where I wanna
let's
go.
do that. Okay, so firstly, so these guys who were modeling human excellence modeled Virginia Satir, the famous
Okay.
family therapist,
Right.
and they also looked at what was going on in a person's brain when they finally did make a change, you know.
Right.
And some of them back in the olden days, they used to use the shock treatment and do all sorts of things. And by the way, you know, I wonder if that's got anything to do with, you know, when people have like fibromyalgia or, you know, the Ross Rivers disease. Have you
Yeah.
ever heard of that?
Oh, it's Ross River,
And
absolutely,
they
yeah.
actually reckon that an electric fence
Right.
will jolt it out of the human being.
Really?
But when you think about it, if they're doing that to the brain and that's jolting people out,
Yep.
I mean, NLP doesn't do that, of course.
No. That's a
But
bit wild.
we jolt people out in a different way, but it's
Right.
still jolting. So sometimes what you'll do is you'll say shocking things
Okay.
to them to make them go, what the hell is she talking about or he talking about? Because it's like a pattern interruption.
Okay.
So it disrupts what is supposed to be actually happening.
I mean,
So-
look, I grew up on a farm. So
Did you really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Well, some of my life, you know, bits and
Yeah,
bobs.
yeah.
But and the jolt that you're talking about, to me, it brings me back to an emotional memory of a wet chicken on an electric fence. If you want to see someone jolt into action, watch that. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, because they used to, when they've got feathers and it's dry,
Yeah.
they walk up and they don't care about electric fence.
Oh,
They don't
my
know, right?
word.
But if it rains, they become wet. Guess what happens?
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, like instant KFC. But
That's
no,
KFC.
I'm kidding. I'm
Do
kidding.
you-
But they jump a long way and they get the jolt.
Yep,
But
yep.
it's the unexpected jolt is kind of, that's
My
where I'm going on
gosh,
that
you know, because this is radio, I'm going to say this, right?
Mhm.
But you know, when I was 15, I was on my auntie's farm
one. Right.
and I trod on a little baby chicken.
Oh,
And I couldn't eat chicken for years. I reckon it was about a decade. But a shocked chicken on
yeah.
a fence,
Yep.
did they die? They
No,
would've-
they didn't.
Oh, they
die.
didn't
No, no,
even
no, no.
die.
No, it just scares the hell out
I
of
wonder
me.
if they came back as a horse or something.
I've seen all sorts of strange things, believe me. But no, but it's. I mean, look, it's a comical thing, but at the same time, the jolt is kind of my point.
The
If you're not
jolt.
the jolt, and they don't expect it because they're accustomed to it all being safe, right? Because they're
Yeah.
insulated, right?
Yes.
In life, they're insulated by the
Yeah.
feathers, and they get away with
Yeah.
doing all these things that normally would cause a
Yeah.
problem. And
Yeah.
just that one thing, and
Yeah.
but guess what? That jolt changes them for life.
It does.
Because they never go near the thing again,
Yeah,
even when it's dry.
Yeah. And also, if you are trained in neuro-linguistic programming and you've done the pattern interruption, then, you know, the next thing you need to do straight away is input what they want.
Okay.
So, you know you're going to be okay after this. You
Yep.
know everything's going to be just fine, right? So, quick story.
Mhm.
I had a guy who was literally, he came in, he was suicidal, right?
It's
He
not good.
sat on my chair. He was shaking. And he was a grown man, shaking. Anyway, he ended up telling me, I knew anyway because the friend that brought him in told me already. So I got a warning. I sort of sidled up beside him. Now, don't try this one, but it's you got to know what you're doing as a practitioner. But I said to him, "Hey, my husband's got a shed out the back. I might be able to get my hands on a rifle. I might be able to do."
Oh,
Yeah, and he looked
You're
at
playing with fire.
I know,
Quite literally.
but he looked at me. He looked at me and went, "What?" And he was in this really downtrodden kind of situation, but
Imagine.
he bolted up.
Yep.
Another one, Anthony Robbins did, this was another jolting thing, was a guy did the same thing in a seminar.
Okay.
And then it was all hinged on, well, I shouldn't be here anyway and my wife's going to be better off and she can have the insurance. And Anthony Robbins right there says, I'm calling the insurance company right now and I'm going to dob you in. He goes, you can't do that. You can't do that because this is a confidential
Conversation, I guess.
setting.
Yeah, okay.
And even so these kind of, all it's to do is it's to interrupt the pattern in the brain.
Okay. So that's what timeline therapy does. It interrupts that pattern.
It interrupts the pattern of the brain, and then you have to input the healing.
Okay.
So the way that timeline therapy is created is everybody's got a different timeline.
Sure.
Some people's timeline is, in front of them for the future, behind them for the past. Some are to the side. So I was dealing with a lady the other day and I literally sat in the car park and I did a timeline therapy with her.
Okay.
And it was, to the left
Yep.
was her past, to the right was her future, but time
That's right.
was outside of her, not inside of her. And that's another deep conversation. But what that does tell me is that because it's outside of her, she is a person that everything is about time. So she's likely to be very organized, very administrative,
Right.
and very stressed.
Very structured.
Structured and very stressed. Like if,
Okay.
if she was running late like us,
Mhm.
that would freak her out.
Yep.
Whereas the chances are someone like you're probably running with time through you.
Okay.
So if you can change your timeline too. So I had once a guy whose his past
Mhm.
was in front of him.
Okay.
So,
Please explain.
okay. So nobody thinks about this stuff, Aaron.
No,
Firstly, I have to be, this is reality, for your people that are probably thinking at home, my God, what is this woman on about, right?
It's all right. I often think the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't, time doesn't actually exist.
Okay.
Man made it up. It is an illusion.
No,
and
it's
in
not.
fact, no, because in America,
Yeah.
it's a different time than it is. Now,
Sure.
if our government,
Mhm.
God forbid, turned around and said tomorrow
Mhm.
we are going into daylight savings,
Sure.
we would all turn our clocks back.
We would.
And so therefore time is just an illusion.
Time's
So
not an illusion, but the calculations of it are man-made.
we are inside the calculations of a man-made time.
I agree with
Exactly.
that, but
Yes.
but time exists
Yes.
from night and day
Yeah.
and seasons and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The concept is thorough. I mean, otherwise it would be the same time in the US right now.
Yeah, exactly.
As look,
Yeah.
right now, and Simon in Canada, for argument's sake,
Yeah, exactly.
would
So
be-
Simon will be, well, he might be awake because there's somebody else awake at the moment if they're like Aaron and they're night owls. But, even Albert Einstein says that time is an illusion. So what happens is we do it at a subconscious level where we do time in our brain, but
Okay.
where is it located? So when you've got a facilitator, they're going to ask you the question like, where is, your past? So in this case, this guy had everything in front of him.
Okay.
And then he was wondering why he couldn't move forward. He could not move forward.
Right.
And this was just one small technique that's not even the full extent of timeline. This is just a fraction. Anybody could do this.
Okay.
I went up to him and I said, if everything is in front of you, how on earth can you move forward if you've got a brick wall right in
Then
front of you?
how is everything in front of him?
Because
if there's a
that's his
brick wall?
subconscious. So in his brain,
Mhm.
he is, so if I said, now, firstly, when you are studying the timeline of a person,
Yep.
you will ask them the right questions. So if, for example, that lady sitting in the car and I was in the passenger seat, I said, all right, I want you to think about something you did this morning,
Right.
whether it was brush your teeth, get out of bed, something inevitable that you did this morning.
Yep.
So if you were, your imagination, subconscious, and you were looking at yourself, where would it be in space of time? Would it be, can you imagine it in front of you, behind you, or to the side of you? Don't try doing it now. You get distracted.
Right.
But I can see you're trying to do it.
give it a crack.
He
Why not,
was
right?
he was trying to do it. I could see it. So, in her case, hers was quite well organized,
Okay.
but it was to the left. But some people's, it can even be on top of them. They can imagine it here. So that's like a huge amount of weight. So when we are looking at the way our subconscious does time,
Mhm.
we can change the way we feel just on the absolute spur of the moment, just in as much that we can, help with stress. So if we are freaking out because we've got a deadline,
Yep.
we're running late, all we have to do is move into the structure of time
Mhm.
and ascertain how we do it. And yes, I can certainly do it with you at some point, so you can find out how you generate time. Once you know how you generate time, you can start shifting it and playing with it. And,
Okay.
so because, okay, let me say it to you like this, because, you're looking at me like I've got 4 heads. So
Just two. No, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to. Okay, in my life, I'm always searching for more time, right? And but I also try and be as productive as I can in the time that I've got allotted, if you like,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I multitask, I keep things on the
Yeah.
balance, boom, 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 right? But why I'm poking the funny faces is because ultimately I'm still working on the principle of there's 24 hours. Okay.
okay.
So that's I'm
But that's a belief system.
yeah, I get
And
that.
we could go very deep into that as well, because
Okay.
that will impact a part of your way of time.
Right.
And look, I don't know many people who could do what you do, Aaron, in the space of time that you can do it, like when it comes to this
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
Get stuff
They
done.
would be freaking out. But I'm guessing that, number one, you have a certain belief system, and this is what the modelling of excellence is. If you want to know how to be a really good radio personality, let's study Aaron. What does he do? How does he think? What is it going on in his brain? What does he believe
No
in?
one needs to be in here. Trust me. No.
Like when you're maneuvering all the, the practical stuff like the
I
buttons.
mean, people
and
don't see,
making
obviously,
things
we're on
work.
screen right now. Obviously, if people are driving along or whatever and listening to edgeradioaustralia.com, online. Okay. Over here, this section off to my left, there is, big monitors, there's audio gear, there's 2 extra computers. There's 3 computers, literally there's 3 computers on the go, 2 screens at the moment, and audio mixing. So while we're doing the show and we're having a conversation, that's all going on. The screen's going on. comments are going on. You've got to
StreamYard's going on. You've got a computer out there. You had the news going on. This is your brilliance. So but you take it for granted because it's your normal.
Well, you've got to, because ultimately,
but it's your normal.
Yeah, it is my normal. It's your normal.
Right?
Yeah. So it's a balancing act. And what you do is you work your time out to make sure you can get it all done.
Yeah. And you may have a different attitude altogether to the next person about time because of the belief system you have.
Sure.
But when it comes to doing time, so number one, let's put it into sort of make it a little bit step by step here. Ascertain the way you do time. Get a good practitioner to help you do it.
Okay.
Look at whether time is in a big muddle or whether it is a little streamlined and a little organised. When you're with a practitioner, the chances are once you've established the timeline, because you can do it in about 20 seconds, honestly, it's not that hard. And the most important thing is this: recognise that this is the present.
Okay.
You are sitting in your present. Yep. Okay.
I like
that. Tonight, whatever's going to happen tonight is in your future. And so is tomorrow morning when you wake up. That is not happening now. See, some people are thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow or what's going to happen later on this afternoon.
How often do you tire yourself out because you're thinking so much about what you've got to do later?
Well, that's it,
that you get
Aaron.
exhausted by it.
That's exactly it. That's my point. So people are doing time of what's happening next week or what hasn't even happened yet, and they're doing it right now.
Now I get it. Okay. Because I was trying to work through it all, and I was kind of because I try and find practical applications so I can figure it out from how I work, right? That makes a lot of sense to me. Absolutely. Yes. And I think this is a big thing about life full stop, about living in the moment. It is something we have lost, that art, and it shouldn't be an art. It should just be a natural way, right?
Yeah.
But we're always thinking ahead. We're always got that little plan ahead, all kind of carry on. And just live in the moment. Obviously, it's better for your mental health and all of that.
But come into yourself when you have to, when you want to feel good.
Yeah, I love that.
So asking yourself that question, where's that? And then what about yesterday? Well, what about 10 years ago? Some people are doing 10 years ago now. I am not joking. And this happens for all of us. When did that happen? Oh, that was 10 years ago. But it's like it's going on in their world right now.
I don't know. I put a photo up on Facebook about 2 days ago that I had, a wonderful, a bad moment in my life, good moment in life, whatever, a very, very big rally crash I had, okay? The biggest one I ever had, okay? And I rolled end for end, front to back, 3.5 times at 140 k's an hour, snapped 20 trees on the way through. Oh. It was a biggie, right? Anyway, it's actually a happy memory, okay?
It's a happy memory.
It's a happy memory because then the car caught fire and all. It was just like
it
was
the car caught fire.
Yeah.
That's delirious.
No, well, I'm not saying I was having the best time at the time. Why it's a happy memory is because of the attitude about it. We got out of the car, put the fire out, all that kind of carry on, right? And the photograph is myself and my co-driver standing on the bonnet. I'm doing the muscle thing, right, being an idiot, okay? And my crew all pulling the finger at me, okay?
Oh, my gosh. Right. And you caught this on candid camera?
Well, somebody took a picture of it.
You were in the moment.
Yeah. Well, what I'm getting at is the fact that that could be a very, very negative moment, okay? But it's a beautiful memory for me, right? Exactly. Now, about the time, because, you know what? I'm celebrating the fact that we're alive. Because it was very like it was a biggie, right? Very, very big. And, and I could have burnt to death, right? But where I'm going on this is as far as the time issue and living in the past, living in the future.
Yeah.
Now, I love my positive and bad memories, I guess, from the past. But I looked at that photograph. I put that up. That was from 31 years ago. It's just a little tyke, right? And but that memory is still, I remember it like it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right?
And the chances are you could probably get really excited about it again.
I can actually feel adrenaline in my body right now.
Wanted to.
Yeah, I can actually feel a physical change.
Yes.
Now, we've got a question or comments come through. There we go. Hi, Melissa. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, no, it was a biggie. The photo was a bit of a mess. So the car was
and see, so you can do it with both good and bad, happy and sad. So you can, bring in those kinds of things. So when you are doing timeline, and can we just go back to Simon's question? If you can just blow that one up.
I can do that. There we go.
So with the timeline therapy, why does it work so rapidly? Well, number one, because you're not having to work with 1,000,001 things that you're probably accumulated that has created stress. And even if you have significant trauma, generally what happens with timelining is you can simply float up in time using your imagination, because the imagination is like the subconscious, and then float back and actually shift the perception of time,
Right.
and take on the learnings and release the burden.
Release the burden. I
Yeah,
think that's the
so
bottom
that's
line,
the thing. So you're
Yep.
dissolving, clearing, and releasing the burden. And generally speaking, if you do it the way that I was taught, like when I was first learning neuro-linguistic programming, and it changed my life, Aaron. It freaking changed the whole trajectory of my life. And it was 3 things. 3 moments of time I had to, pinpoint.
Okay.
And it's like a faction of a team. Somebody might go, oh, but I've had 1,000 different traumatic experiences.
Sure.
No, we only want 3.
Only want 3?
Because they work as the weight-bearing walls.
I can give you a catalogue.
Exactly. But you only need the 3. You need the recent, you need the initial, which quite often we can't find. And if we can't, we'll find it ourselves subconsciously,
Sure.
or should I say you will, because this is very orchestrated by the client. The client is in control. The client is the master of their own destiny.
I like to hear that.
It has nothing at all to do with the facilitator. The only thing that the facilitator is doing is that they know how to utilize the toolbox.
Makes sense.
And if they're good at it, they're passionate at it, then obviously that is going to make a bit of a difference.
Yep.
So by going back and pulling the weight-bearing walls out, it works like a domino. So that is the reason why. It took me a long time to answer him, but that's the reason why it works so rapidly.
I tell you what, thank God we don't pay you by the word. No. I'm really teasing on that one. All right.
Dan, that's a great idea.
This one. Fantastic. Look, a comment from Australia this time, from Veronica in Melbourne. Thank you very much for contacting us. Now, this is a pretty heavy one. I did notice a moment. So Veronica says, I have diagnosed PTSD, diagnosed before I went into the police force 10 years ago. Can timeline therapy help with this since I've had it for so long?
110%. And I wouldn't mind betting, Veronica, that the reason you're in the police force is linked into the trauma.
Reckon?
So yeah, I do. I'll put money on it.
Okay.
Especially if it's a passion. If you're just doing it for the money and you didn't really have any passion around it, and it was just logical, it might be different. But if it is your purpose and you have a sustainable position, which obviously 10 years, and you would have had to, you probably were diagnosed when you went through, because I know my daughter-in-law went through all that and the psychological tests they have given and all that kind of jazz. So yes, the answer is a absolute 100% yes. I've even worked with detectives.
Yep.
Does the timeline necessarily do it? Look, I do utilize timeline therapy through a session for post-traumatic stress disorder, but I also utilize rapid eye movement as well. So the rapid eye movement is where the brain is shifting then the way the person's trauma has been programmed. So to really unlock it. So I do use a few things, but I can still confidently say that you will be able to shift that post-traumatic stress disorder with a good practitioner who knows what they're doing. And of course, with myself, I'm blending it in with a bit of hypnosis as well.
So Veronica, go and see someone who's really good at NLP. Do not see Archie. Do not see Jughead. Okay? Okay? Come on.
I was going to say, who's that? Who are you talking about?
It's just me being a fool. All right.
Got time for one more question?
Veronica. Really appreciate that. Yep. Let's go all the way to New Zealand. So help me, Rhonda. Here we go. Rhonda is in New Zealand. I seem to have had a bad run of relationships since I was in my late teens. Welcome aboard. I am sick of attracting the same controlling narcissistic men. Can hypnosis or NLP help?
Are you guys like mirroring each other here?
Big time. Oh, look, Rhonda, well, you know what? If you're single and you're cool, get over here.
Come
to Perth.
over here and
come
sit on
right now,
the
'cause
couch.
I can identify with this 1,000%.
Absolutely. And the Malloy needs a wife. Oh, just joking. Anyway, Rhonda, no, seriously, this is very common. And look, we all have our certain attractions. There's nobody on the planet Earth that has perfect relationships. It
No
just does
doubt.
not happen.
Mm-mm.
It's just not a happening thing, okay? So sadly, what you have been able to identify is it happens to happen with your love interest.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Important to know that.
there is that's really good. So the awareness around that, we're having someone on the show come on next week. Maybe it might be worth just putting it out there that it'll be worth watching it because she is all about soul contracts.
Okay.
But that's what I'm going to suggest. And the soul contract means that there are no accidents in life.
Yep.
If you have met with the wrong person, they have still been one of your greatest teachers.
Sure.
You know, I mean, this sounds really woo. Go on, you've
Yeah.
got something to say. Go on, say it.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. But I do want to say this, okay? Because I have an issue with soul contracts. I've got some great people in my life who speak so highly of them, speak so much of them, and on my kind of attitude is, okay, like, you know, surely I wouldn't have signed so many poor contracts, right? Like, you know, surely maybe, and I don't like lawyers. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe because I don't like lawyers, I never got one involved looking at the old.
Well, this is
the
right.
fine
Maybe
print.
your great grandfather was murdered by a lawyer. I'm just joking, but I'm
do
being
not know.
very dramatic.
No, you
but
are.
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And so
where I'm going. Well,
yeah.
no, look, I studied law at school. Okay, so and you know that's not the path I decided to go down. But the soul contracts, like I'm so conflicted. Part of me is 100% involved, like and I buy it. Okay, from the point of view of like the old story of what it happens to you. Right. Sorry, it doesn't happen to you. It happens for you.
Yes.
And the fact of these things have come into my life, your life, everybody's lives to teach them lessons. Right. So the next lap or whatever, but to actually find the meaning of life is just kind of work through them and work through your traumas and your disappointments and your this and that. Right.
Yeah.
So like I'm for the stuff that I've gone through in my life, there's a little bit of me that's actually a little bit pleased that these things happen because it's made me a much better man than I was before, right?
Yeah.
So there's been an evolution as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Well, the evolution's carrying on forever until the day they start throwing dirt on me.
You're always
right?
evolving.
Yep.
Yeah.
So look, all of that, but yeah, the soul contract thing. I mean, I'm really interested. Next
and
week,
I'm gonna, because she makes me look like I'm practical and logical and right down to earth.
Whoa!
And so you're in strife.
I'm in trouble there.
So yeah, look, it's not my specialty area. I'm going to say that to you right now. What I would say, probably more from a, maybe a Christian standpoint in some ways is, and this was a very big, huge theological argument, and that is predestination. So predestination is sort of like, okay, well, if there's God, God knows every hair on your head, maybe on your on your face, whatever. But there's this element that we know that was all mapped out for you. But this lady that's coming on board next week, she goes one step further to say that she has a knowledge that some people, even though they may be involved in these soul contracts, they may not have the opportunity in this lifetime to learn about it.
So it's going to roll into the next, yeah?
Well, I think that's what she believes.
Okay.
I mean, I don't necessarily believe everything she believes, and I don't know. I think that's okay for me to say that.
Of course it is. And this is the thing that I love about what we do here at Edge, okay? We have people here that we disagree with.
Yeah.
And it's okay to disagree.
Yes.
In fact, it's growth, right?
Yeah.
So unlike, mainstream media, we're not going to carry on where they're just going to basically keep throwing the same ideas at you and programming you with that.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we have people we disagree with. I mean, it's so important.
Yes.
You do not grow as a human being. You don't look at things differently. You live in a bubble unless you actually challenge yourself.
Yeah,
right?
well, as an evangelistic style of person that I am,
right?
I mean, why would we kind of kick something to the wall that could be, something that could end up being so great to us when we could be called to convert? I'm just
never
going to
know, right?
say that. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I totally know what you
People
mean. Yeah.
have been known to convert, whether their voting parties, what they believe, their religious beliefs. I
Yep.
mean, let's not get into all of that. But as far
But why not?
as
Let's talk sex as well. I mean,
all of the controversial
if we're
topics.
going to
Why
talk about
not?
religion and politics, let's
Well,
have
we
a show.
we got over I think 1,000 views on that because we had sex as the headline.
There you
But
go.
no, truly, getting back to this conversation, the relationship is, if we just talk about it from the NLP timelining type of style,
Mhm.
it is a repetitive pattern because your brain feels very comfortable doing the same old, same old.
Okay.
So you usually, like, if you know that you like spaghetti bolognese, you know that. But if you hate milk, I
Right.
mean, you're not going to change your mind next week.
No.
You usually have these things. So that's the reason. I mean, that's a ridiculous metaphor, but it's the same for when you're attracted to people. There's still something about that narcissist
Mhm.
that drew you in the first place. And there is something that person has been able to teach you. But the question that I'd have for you, Rhonda, is what did they teach you? What is it that you require to learn? If you look back, and it's not about, oh, he did, she did, and everything else, because it's not the story.
Yep.
It's about the energetics of it. So
Yeah.
you'll find that if you look at one situation, you called them narcissists, you basically got, well, I felt used and abused, or
Yep.
I felt abandoned, or I felt rejected. So you'll find that there's a theme. So it's not about all the people, naming them, blaming them, and then each and every single crisis that's actually happened. But it's about the fact that you've got a repetitive pattern on rejection, abandonment. I'm not saying that that's you either, Rhonda. This is just quite common theme really happening
Okay.
here. So you're really identifying the energetic component of that emotional world, so you can go, right, okay, what did I need to learn from that? Now, once you don't have to answer yourself straight away, but once you release it, you then, when you have a practitioner, I mean, to do it really properly, you would then be invited to actually design your own life. So you
Okay.
might say, I need more, sort of assertiveness,
Okay.
or I need more security,
Right.
or I need the ability to be able to do this, this, and this. And you'll usually find, and especially if it comes from a parent, this is a very strange thing. You'll find that if you've got a parent that you really have got, and this happens to a lot of people, you've got an issue with, you'll find that parent also needed the same things, and that's why they couldn't give it to you. So you give that parent those resources.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're doing is you're flooding that through. Now, it's not about making up a lie and saying those things never happened, because they did.
It happened.
But it's about getting them out of your body.
Okay, fantastic. That's a lot of detail. My word, Rhonda, I will throw my 2 bobs worth on this one, just in very simple terms. I mean, ultimately, you've said, can hypnosis and NLP help? And from one person who's lived the exact same life as you when it comes to attracting those sorts of people, and having those bad experiences because of the people that we attract. And I'm not actually even going to have a go at those people, because quite frankly, I obviously put it out to the world, and I obviously brought those people into my life. So I take personal responsibility for
Good
what
job, you.
I brought in.
Well
Right?
done.
I invited that, and clearly it was something I needed, right? And now, I look back and I look at my childhood and all that kind of and I figured it all out. Well, not figured out as much as I can on the roll, that, why I'm attracted to those people, why I seek that out. Fantastic. You feel really good. So in a nutshell, hypnosis, NLP, it can absolutely help you. In my opinion, 100% get onto it, because you can wash that part of your life. In fact, I was going to say you can wash it away, and don't do that. Don't wash it away at all. Just, learn from it, move on forward.
I reckon washing it away is good.
Do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
washing
Grab
it
the hose.
away, but clearing it. But, it's not about, forgetting it. It's not something you have to forget or pretend like it was never there. You're basically washing your physical being. And just one more thing I'd like to say on that note, that is that you're the one that has to do it.
Yeah.
There are no gurus. There are no manipulators. It is all about you designing your life, identifying your problems, and recreating and rewiring yourself.
Love it. And on that bombshell, we've hit the end of the show well and truly. So thank you very much. Thanks for the great questions that have come through. I've noticed on this feed and the other feeds that a lot of people have been listening because it's been bouncing all over the place, which always means that the questions are coming through too on the other feeds, which means during the week we better have a look at those because we haven't been able to see them. And we can obviously talk about that next week when we have our special guest. Thank you very much for being part of the Genius Zone here on Edge Radio Australia.
A show where we have explored through this various topic along with all the exciting new topics that we bring every week to enhance your personal mastery of excellence. Now, I'd love you to do me a favor. In fact, be part of the Legacy 1 million that I have in the vision for 2028. If you know someone who really would benefit from this recording, from this episode, please share it with them. And when you subscribe, you get notified every week of our episode as soon as it drops. So let's do that legacy thing. Let's share, let's care, let's enrich. And I look forward to bringing you another week of the most enriching content. So until next time, stay inspired, stay awesome, and keep on mastering your excellence.